Friedrich Haas drove that Pennsylvania mountain in July 1932, and the car he'd built did exactly what he'd engineered, right until the moment it didn't. He was 55 years old. The curve came faster than the geometry allowed. In the fall of 1926, a 31-year-old entrepreneur named E.L. Cord walked into the Duesenberg Brothers factory in Indianapolis and sat down across from Friedrich Haas. He didn't bring a proposal. He brought a single instruction: build the finest automobile in the world. Not the finest American car, the finest car anywhere. Cord said it plainly, the way he said most things. Fry didn't ask what that meant, because he already knew. The engine took 3 years to get right. Dual overhead camshafts, virtually unknown in American production cars of that decade. 4 valves per cylinder, 32 total. The result was 265 horsepower. At 4,200 RPM, the Model J appeared at the Paris Salon in October 1928. European journalists walked around it slowly, saying little. What little they said was acknowledgement. America had built something with no peer on the continent. 3 months later, the Model J debuted at the New York Auto Show. Orders began immediately. The bare chassis at 8,500, coachwork to 20,000 beyond. The waiting list was 6 months minimum. On October 29, 1929, the American economy collapsed, and by 1932, 1 in 4 Americans had no work. Men stood in lines in Indianapolis, Chicago, Detroit. The bread lines were a block long before 8 in the morning. The Duesenberg order book held through 1930 and 1931. What Fried Haas didn't know, what no one had told him yet, was that the car he was building was about to become something more than an automobile. Greta Garbo ordered a Model J. Gary Cooper ordered one, and Clark Gable's representative appeared with a deposit check. A Chicago industrialist specified French gray, coachwork, and was willing to wait. The Depression had not reached these men. $20,000 in 1932, against an average American annual wage of approximately $1,000. The Duesenberg cost 20 years of average wages. The men ordering it understood this arithmetic and signed the check regardless. The body was built separately, hand-formed at Murphy in Pasadena, Durham in Pennsylvania, Rolston in New York. 4 to 6 craftsmen per car, 2 to 3 months of work. Each body built to one customer specification, never repeated. Fried specified 4-wheel hydraulic drum brakes, 15-inch Lockheed actuation, the most precisely engineered system on any American production car in 1932. Better than the Packard 12. Designed for a car capable of 116 miles per hour. In 1932, Fried answered the Depression by making the car faster. The S.J., supercharged 320 horsepower, was his answer. He would not stop until the car was as fine as it could be made. Repeated brake application converts kinetic energy to heat. As the cast iron drum expands thermally, it moves away from the lining surface, and the pedal travel required for contact increases. The deceleration at the same pedal pressure decreases. By spring 1932, Fried kept one for himself. Brewster Green Phaeton, Murphy coachwork on the long wheelbase. He drove it on Indiana roads, the brakes performing as specified. The straight 8 sounded exactly as he had designed. In late June 1932, Fried drove east. Not for business, but to put the car against terrain his flat Indiana proving ground could not simulate. Steep grades, long descents, mountain road geometry the Midwest does not offer. He crossed into Pennsylvania on July 1st. The road changed immediately. Flat geometry replaced by grades and curves, where you did not see the other side, until you were already committed to the speed you were carrying. The Laurel Highlands rise to 2,900 feet. In 1932, the roads were two-lane chip-sealed state routes, grades exceeding 8%, no guardrails. They had been built for horse-drawn loads and the 35-horsepower cars of 15 years earlier. On July 2nd, Fried drove toward Ligonier on a 3-mile mountain grade. That should have been the whole story, but the grade was longer than the drum physics could accommodate, and he alone understood both sides of that equation. 3 miles of sustained descent, the drums working every curve. On the first mile, the brakes perform as designed. Drums warm, not yet hot. The car carrying nearly 5,000 pounds. The most consequential mile has not begun. Before we follow Fried any further, if this is the kind of story you've been looking for, subscribe to the channel. Every video here is built around a real car, a real road, and a life that changed somewhere on the asphalt. No filler. If that matters to you, the subscribe button is how you tell us. And leave a comment. Have you ever driven a mountain road and felt the brakes change under your foot on a long descent? Now, back to Friedrich Haas and the third mile. On the second mile, the pedal travels slightly longer. Not enough to register as a problem. The deceleration still feeling correct, but thermal expansion has begun, and the gap between lining and drum surface is no longer zero. He knew the system better than any living person. The drum diameter, the lining compound, the hydraulic bore, the thermal curves. What he lacked was the specific grade of this road at this moment in the descent. On the third mile, the pedal goes 2 inches further before deceleration begins. In a vehicle of this weight at this speed, 2 inches is the distance between the curve that can be made and the curve that cannot. Near Ligonier, the road turned right, the edge dropping with no barrier. The Model J entered the curve faster than the road could absorb. The tire slip threshold was not a figure Fried had needed. He knew it now. The outside rear tire found the road edge. Then the edge was gone. The car went off the right side, the unguarded side, and the coachwork Raymond Voss had spent 4 months building met the Pennsylvania terrain. The road above him was unchanged. The chip-sealed surface, the curve, the unguarded edge, exactly as it had been. The road had been built for horse-drawn loads. It had not yielded. It had not been designed to. Friedrich Haas was found severely injured and transported to a hospital in western Pennsylvania. The era had no antibiotics, internal trauma at 55, and the complication that followed in 1932 was pneumonia. Controllable now. Uncontrollable then. He died on July 26, 1932, 24 days after the accident. Pneumonia finishing what the road had started. He was 55, and the finest automobile he had ever built was in a ditch in western Pennsylvania. The Indianapolis factory continued. August Haas, Friedrich's brother, oversaw production, while E.L. Cord pressed forward, the order book still holding names across the Cord Corporation's remaining divisions. The cars kept being built. Gary Cooper took delivery of one of 2 ultra-short wheelbase SSJ Roadsters, the only 2 ever built. Clark Gable received the other. The cars appeared in the driveways of men who had survived what destroyed millions. By 1933, the car had attached the phrase to itself permanently. The decision Fried made in 1926, to build not a fine car but the finest, had entered the American language. He died before he knew it. The orders continued through 1933, 1934, and 1935. Each car still a 6-month lead time, each one costing what 20 years of average wages bought. The Depression could not reach the men at the top of the order book. E.L. Cord had built an empire. Auburn, Duesenberg, Lycoming Engines, New York Shipbuilding, and a dozen other holdings. It was the most technically sophisticated American automotive enterprise of the 1930s. Also the most overextended. In 1937, the Cord Corporation collapsed. Depression economics and an overextended structure brought down Auburn, Cord, and Duesenberg simultaneously. The Indianapolis factory closed, and the coach builders found their order books empty in a single quarter. Approximately 470 Model J chassis had been built over 9 years, each one to an individual specification, each a transaction between a coach builder's craft and a customer's requirements. The production run was over. The DOHC inline-eight Haas, designed, remained unmatched by any American production car for over a decade after his death. No American manufacturer produced a DOHC road car until the 1960s. His application of aircraft architecture was 30 years ahead. Approximately 425 of the 470 Model J chassis survive. The owners who took delivery in the 1930s understood what they had was irreplaceable. They kept them, and their heirs kept them. The Auburn Cord Duesenberg Museum in Auburn, Indiana, preserves the production record of the Cord Corporation's decade. Examples of all three marks are maintained in the building where Auburn automobiles were assembled. The factory floor is still the factory floor. Model J examples regularly bring $4 million at auction. The highest have exceeded $10 million. The buyers are not buying transportation. They are buying proof that what America built in the 1930s outlasted the economy around it. $4 million. Against the $20,000 it cost in 1932, against the $1,000 an average American earned that year. The arithmetic has changed. The car has not, and the DOHC inline-eight still turns. Murphy Body Company closed in 1934. Duesenberg orders had kept it alive through the Depression's worst years. The craftsmen who built Friedrich Haas's car went elsewhere. The wooden bucks that formed the Brewster green panels were broken up. In 1932, men stood in Indianapolis bread lines before 8 in the morning, while a factory 2 miles away assembled automobiles costing 20 years of wages. Neither fact negated the other. Both facts were America in 1932. Fried was not indifferent to the men in the bread lines. He was answering a different question. The bread line asked how to survive. The Model J asked what was possible, and he only knew how to answer one. On July 2nd, Fried knew the Model J's brakes better than anyone alive. He trusted that knowledge the way a man trusts what he built with his own hands. That trust was the last decision he made with confidence. The car was recovered from the embankment. The Brewster green coachwork Raymond Voss's shop had built over 4 months was not salvageable as a complete unit. What remained was assessed, documented, and held. No question of discarding it. The DOHC inline-eight survived the accident intact. The block Lycoming machined to Haas's specification, 32 valves, dual cam timing, was unaffected by what the coachwork had absorbed. The engine was still the same engine. By 1933, the phrase had attached itself to the Duesenberg name, a machine so far beyond ordinary that the word used for it became its own category. Haas had built something that entered the language. He died without hearing it. 425 of the 470 chassis survive. The owners kept them through the war, through decades when other pre-war machines were scrapped or forgotten. This was not the kind of car that gets lost. Fried built the finest automobile in America and died in it on a Pennsylvania mountain road. The gap between his engineering and what 1932 roads could handle was 2 inches of pedal travel. That was not a failure of engineering. The car is still here. The road is still here. E.L. Cord's empire ended in a museum in Indiana. The craftsmen dispersed. But the DOHC inline-eight outlasted all of them, and so did the road. If these road stories are what you want to keep watching, subscribe to the channel. More cars, more roads, more lives lived behind a steering wheel that meant something. And if you ever drove a car like this, or knew someone who did, tell us in the comments. What car, what road, where it took you. The cars remember everything. So do the people who drove them.